Hello, everyone, and thanks for listening to the Quality Hub, Chatting with ISO Experts. I'm your host, Xavier Francis, and today I'm here with Reagan Jorgensen, Security Solutions Technician from here at Core. Glad you could join us again.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Very, very happy to be here.
Awesome. So glad you're with us again. Now, this week's podcast is called What to Do After a Cyber Attack, where we'll be talking about what you should do if you discover that your network or device has been attacked. Now, if you're a Quality Hub listener, you likely heard from Reagan before, but let's learn a little bit more about our guest. Reagan?
As Xavier said, I'm Reagan Jorgensen. I've been with Core Business Solutions a bit over a year or 2 years now as a security solutions technician and architect. I specialize in the NIST and CMMC realm, but I've been in the cybersecurity industry for about 5 years now, specializing in many, many different areas in the cybersecurity space, which is a reason why I like it so much. It's never ending, but it's always changing. There's always something to learn. Very excited to talk to you all today, and thanks for having me, X.
Absolutely, and you're not wrong. It does change daily sometimes, so we're so glad to have you and your expertise here. Well, let's get started. Again, we're talking about what a company, not necessarily an individual, but a company or an organization, what they should do when they're attacked. And we want to start with what are the first steps an organization should take immediately after they've discovered they've been cyber attacked.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is the most important part. Well, honestly, I could say that about every single part, but once it's happening.
What happens when you're like, okay, we got a problem?
Yeah, exactly. So to me, kind of the immediate steps after discovering a cyber attack is you want to focus on the containment and the assessment of that attack immediately to minimize the damage. So first, the organization should isolate any affected systems to prevent the attack from spreading horizontally, vertically. When it's in your network, you want to stop it from moving.
Gotcha.
So for example, something like this, where you may involve disconnecting compromised devices from the network, shutting down servers, specific servers, not everything, or even segmenting the network if necessary immediately. So you just want to evaluate right now, what can you stop? What can you shut down to stop the widespread inside of the network?
Right. So you're trying to remove it from the network environment to minimize any additional exposure to other devices on that network. And that's even if you're hooked up wirelessly, just connect your Wi-Fi. If you have no access to a computer, it's locked down and you can't do anything, shut it off, unplug it. Take the battery out if you can.
Yeah, exactly.
Just stop it from connecting.
Yep, right now. Yeah, exactly. So I say do that first. That's first step no matter what. And then the next critical step is to kind of initiate the incident response plan. And we're going to talk a lot about that today, is the IRP. But you should already have that in place, hopefully, once the attack happens or something happens here. And it's essentially just assembling the cybersecurity team to assess the extent of the breach and kind of get a grip and understand the attack vectors that were used in the attack to cause the attack. So it kind of wordy there, but you want to know what happened and why it happened. You want to know why it happened now.
Right.
And you want to assess the extent of what could be exposed inside your organization.
Okay.
So this calls for IT staff to take certain actions, depending on the attack, of course, if it's small or big.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about that in a bit. But once the situation is under control.
Now, when you say under control, is that meaning okay, we know we have things segmented, the device isn't going to be connected to the network, we know there's nothing else going on currently trying to attack you, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I mean by that is you stopped it from moving inside the network. You said, exactly, shutting down the server that it affected, shutting down that workstation. It's no longer active and disassociated from your network.
Right.
So yeah, you're spot on. It's under control. Then you want to assess, and it's a different than assessing down the line, a long-term assessment of the exposure, but you want to assess it right now, an immediate assessment.
Okay.
So you want to do that by securing evidence, securing logs and data, any relevant information that could be used in a forensic investigation.
Okay.
And you want to do that immediately because you never know what could be altered. You want to have all of that data in a state where it was not altered. You have it. It's pretty accurate.
Okay.
So, and throughout that process, you should definitely be maintaining clear communication with internal teams like stakeholders, and if required, external regulatory bodies, which is very crucial and mandated, depending what sector you're in.
Okay.
But this process is crucial to manage the response effectively. And it doesn't all have to be done 1, 2, 3, 4. You should have that set 1, 2, 3, 4 by your IRP. But if you stop and eradicate the problem now, then you move on to assessing, logging, boom, boom, boom. Now you're communicating. It all kind of works in tandem.
Okay. Now, a couple little thoughts here. How long can an investigation take? And what about work? If a laptop or a computer, it was caught fast enough and there's nothing else that was affected, what can you do? Do you give out another laptop? Do you keep working? Do you look to make sure it wasn't infected in anything like a OneDrive? How long can it take, and how long are you going to be out of work? Or what can you do to make sure people can still be productive?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a fantastic question. And you should have an answer so that when or if an attack does happen, kind of your procedures and you're not in a panic mode almost.
Right.
So investigations can usually take anywhere from a few days to a few weeks, or maybe more, depending on the severity and how complicated the issue is.
Okay.
But if a problem is caught quickly and it's just one laptop or one computer affected, it's usually a good idea to give the employee a new device right then, take their device off the network, isolate that device that was affected, give them a new device so they can keep working while you dig into what happened and you investigate into that attack on the affected device. They stay productive. You can focus on figuring out the root cause. And then the main goal is business operations. We want to minimize business operations downtime, but we also want to ensure anything affected is efficiently and thoroughly handled right then. So it's definitely security, but know the business side as well.
We'll get into it a little bit more, but like if you're talking about ransomware, one of the jobs that they want to do is shut you down so you will pay it and then be able to be productive again. Well, you got to look at it. That's even if it's not, most people have deadlines of something coming up that needs to be done, and it's crucial for the business. You've got to make sure that they can still stay productive in the meantime while you're trying to investigate it. And on top of that, if everything's on that one device, that's not going to be as accessible and they can't do their job as easy. So that's one reason to have things in place like a OneDrive or something where, things are backed up for each individual person's device. So if worst case scenario, they're out for a couple of weeks, they can't get that device back for a long time, or even maybe it has to be wiped, that information's not lost and they can still be productive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I know we touched on a little bit, maybe more than a little bit, but how can a company effectively contain the damage and prevent the attack from spreading?
Yeah, we definitely touched on it a little bit, but to effectively contain the damage of a cyber attack, usually companies, I would say, rapidly isolate the affected segments of its network. And that's every aspect of the network. That's not just disconnecting the computer or shutting it down. That thing is still on the network. So
right.
Like I mentioned earlier, the IT staff or the admins start to take action immediately, disconnecting servers, workstations, entire sections of the network if you need to, depending on the scope. And then additionally, disabling. It goes out of just disconnecting or shutting down. You want to disable, compromised user accounts.
Okay. And
change users' passwords and access credentials across the organization. Let's say UX were involved in this attack. It was your workstation. Instead of just shutting your workstation down, we're going to disable your access credentials to sensitive information, let's say, or information that could be exploited and used as ransom. We want the attacker to not be able to dive that deep.
Okay.
So we're going to, change your password, disconnect credentials, disable them, the whole 9 yards, not just shut down your workstation.
Right.
So that particular action is not always necessary, depending how big it really is, what it's affecting. It's great practice to stop the vertical movement of an attacker in the network. And they might be able to move horizontally, but if we disable the access vertically, higher level access, they won't be able to move vertically. They'll only be able to get what they've already gotten.
Right.
Which is hopefully not much.
Right. So let's say, your ID department, you're part of ours here from a security standpoint, or if you have an MSP, they really need to be involved and know what to do for your rapid action. Maybe having your MS accounts or an RMM or Intune or something be able to send commands to all computers that are affected to lock them down, really having that remote access, really having that management from the back end.
Yeah, absolutely. There's the incident response And then there's disaster response and disaster recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to know what you're going to do before it happens is essential. Like you said, having an RMM to know that you can send these commands through Intune, knowing that you can do that is essential before it happens. You can't just say, oh, now what do? We can't manually go to every workstation and do. I mean, it's too long. The attacker's already moving inside. Right.
And they have a plan to be fast too.
Oh yeah, they're in and they're out as soon. They're not just lingering, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll wait."
Yeah.
Yeah, they're in and they're out pretty quick. But again, it also depends on the severity and how widespread the breach is.
Okay.
Deploying patches or updates to address vulnerabilities that may have been exploited is very important. So having a tool like you mentioned to scan those systems immediately. There's a patch that's not up to. We want to patch everything right now. Because that could have been the access issue. Once you take that access point away, they can't get in anymore.
Yep.
And like you said, you can do it via many different tools, many different industry tools. So a lot of these steps are not only used to kind of contain, but are used to eradicate the attack as well. So you want to contain it, of course, but you want to remove it from your network and your systems right now.
Right. Well, sort of a side point, but a great reason to have updates managed beforehand, to know that potential vulnerabilities are patched. Everybody's like, oh, we've got updates. This stinks. Well, sometimes that's what can help keep you from having an attack.
Yeah.
So how important is conducting this forensic investigation after a cyber attack? Obviously, it's pretty important, but what should this process entail?
Yeah, it's definitely important. Conducting a forensic investigation after a cyber attack is crucial for many reasons. One is understanding the scope, the nature, or the impact of the breach itself. So you have to know what it's doing, what has it done.
Right.
So this investigation helps in identifying kind of how the attack occurred, which you definitely want to know to prevent that from happening in the future. What vulnerabilities were exploited. So you know what to patch, what ports to shut down, things like that. And then what data or systems were compromised. So, certain data or systems that were compromised, you want to shut those down or remove them now.
Right.
This information is necessary to start the remediation efforts in your network. You have to know this information to begin that response plan. You need that forensic investigation.
Right.
So it also gives you kind of a good reference on where and what to start remediating. The process should usually entail a thorough examination of logs, files, and any digital evidence left by the attackers, which happens.
Okay.
They're not just in and out. You don't know what happened, where. It's not invisible. If things are happening on the system, they're happening on the system. Just because hackers hack in doesn't mean they're hiding every step of their process.
Right.
You see the logs, you see the network traffic, you see that digital evidence. So the findings from a forensic investigation not only assist in kind of resolving the immediate issues right now to shut it down, but they also provide insights down the line, like I said, in the future to prevent any future attack.
Okay.
Also, the results are often necessary for regulatory compliance. And this one is huge. Not only will the forensic investigation do all the things that I just mentioned, but you also need it for regulatory compliance, legal proceedings, forming stakeholders about the incident. There's just a lot of things that are required, not only you want to do and you should do, but are required on that end as well.
Yep. Even for insurance purposes and legal protections, like you said, I mean, if you end up needing to pay a ransomware or you're handling proprietary information, something from the government, imagine if you're working with the DoD, you really need to show you are doing your due diligence ahead of the attack in many cases. A lot of insurance, they want to make sure you have all of your I's, dotted and your T's crossed before they're going to issue a check to help you. A DoD, if you said you were protecting this information, you got to be able to prove that you were doing it and they got around it somehow. So absolutely a huge factor.
I mean, of course, it hugely depends on what type of sector you're in. Like you said, DoD, I will tell you right now, you will for sure need that forensic investigation. Those logs, you need to show everything. Like you mentioned, government or health related work, the logging of that data. I know for sure the logging of that data, and it's almost any data, not particularly every single packet flowing through your network, but it's a lot of logs that you have to keep and records you have to show because it's required.
Yeah.
It's very, very important to log that, because if something happens and you're handling a contract with the DoD, or you have health information, you have something sensitive to someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to have that to show, hey, I'm not held as liable as you think it was. It wasn't just me saying, not doing my due diligence. You have those logs, that data to show an investigation.
Right. Yep. It really is important. Vital to the future health of your business, in all honesty, and any stakeholders that might be affected. Like we said, clients, information of theirs that's being used. If you're dealing with healthcare, there's PII, personal identifying information of all these individuals. If they get access to that, it can be a real problem.
Yep.
This ends part 1 of What to Do After a Cyber Attack. Please tune in next week, where we'll continue our discussion with Reagan Jorgensen and look at what you should have in your IRP or incident response plan and more. And we want to thank everyone here who's listened to our podcast today. We hope it's been informative for you. If you're looking for more information about Core Business Solutions, how we can help you with ISO certification or cybersecurity, we also do customized training and other things, please email us at info@thecoresolution.com. Or you can also visit our website at www.thecoresolution.com. And if you haven't already followed us on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube, be sure to do so, and that way you won't miss the next Quality Hub podcast when it's released next week. Have a great day, everyone.